So this video was a great catch by Case Study QB. Shout out to Case Study QB for finding this. There's a giant winter storm that hit Texas. And so there's been a federal emergency declaration as a result of that because they don't have nearly enough plows, their infrastructure isn't winterized, so there's problems, big problems. Look at the resources that the emergency declaration mobilized.
And the White House issuing a federal emergency declaration for the entire state of Texas. Governor Greg Abbott submitted the request over the weekend. This means FEMA can come in and provide shelter, food, and Medicare for all 254 counties.
So because of the winter storm and the fallout and how it's a disaster and how people need help, this emergency declaration made it so that everybody can get medical care. Everybody can get medical care, and it's for free. I need you to think about how little sense the system makes, because people would argue, Republicans and Democrats would argue to you, we can't do an emergency declaration to give medical care to everybody in the country during the health crisis of a pandemic. But we can give everybody medical care for a winter storm crisis. That makes less than no sense. That makes absolutely no sense. That is insulting to our intelligence. That's what that is. You actually do have the authority to give everybody medical care in this pandemic, but you're choosing not to do it. That's the truth. You're choosing not to take that fight on. And by the way, it's not even like, so this is an emergency declaration through FEMA. There are other ways you could do it with Medicare for All, where apparently under Obamacare, there's a certain town, I forget where it is in the U.S., and there was this pollution problem, and basically it's an area where it's toxic. And so under Obamacare, they basically provided free healthcare to this particular place in the country. And the wording of the provision is such that it says whenever there's an emergency, you could give people single payer, free healthcare. So it's just a matter of looking at that provision, interpreting it as COVID is an emergency for the whole country, so let's give everybody medical care. So in other words, you could technically do it through FEMA in an emergency declaration, or you can do it through Obamacare, using that provision to expand it. And as David Dayen laid out in a great article on this, he said, listen, you could start just by saying any bills associated with the pandemic. You know, you could start by saying if the bills are from the pandemic, that's part of the health crisis, then eventually you can expand it to anything. So, I mean, there's a variety of ways to actually do it and get away with it, but they don't want to do it. Biden doesn't want to do it. And listen, I hate to bring this up, except I don't. It's true. They take so much money from the for-profit health insurance companies. You know, they've since multiple times they've weakened their proposal on healthcare. Multiple times they've done it. And the reason why is they've taken so much money from the for-profit health insurance companies. And so now they went from like a public option to let's just subsidize COBRA with a lot more money. And COBRA, of course, is great for the for-profit health insurance companies. So it's Weasley and it's bullshit and it's corrupt. And it's moments like this where you have that, you know, you have that light bulb moment that like, wait, what? So we have the authority, free medical care for everybody because of a winter storm in Texas. Great, but free medical care for everybody because there's a fucking pandemic and a subsequent depression, by the way. But there's a health crisis, literally, it's a pandemic. That's not how they're looking at it. It's sort of like, hey, you're still on your own. It's really crazy. But anyway, this is a great catch by Case Study QB. Apparently, winter storms merit Medicare for all, but a pandemic doesn't. It definitely does, and they should do it, but they're bought and owned by the for-profit health insurance companies.